Good afternoon, folks. Just doing some last minute setup. I think we are up and running and ready to go. So let's get everything switched over and we will kick off today's jam stream. And there we are. Let me put on a real quick loop in the background and we will talk about what we're going to do today. Hey, I see Capri Sun's here. Capri Sun says, just in time, I just finished the Pokemon battle. Well, welcome to the stream. I'm glad to have you here as usual. This is really simple 2-track beat that I just threw together while the stream was loading. And I'll use it to talk about some stuff, and then we're going to clear it off, and we'll use this empty track for stuff when we get to BGM later. I did see Capri Sun drop a beat redeem. So what I'll do is let me spend a minute or two talking about what I plan on doing today, and then we'll use the drop a beat as an intro to the warm-up stuff that we're gonna do, kind of like a segue. I will say, since for at least for the early part of the stream on these, since I usually run through freestyling stuff for about 5 to 10 minutes, if you don't want to waste the drop a beat redeem there's a good chance, unless you're looking for me to do something specific, the warm-up stuff is going to cover that. So if you want Capri Sun, I can refund your points back, since I'm going to be doing freestyling for a bit as the warm-up, and then you could save it for the future and not have to worry about burning 750, because I know that's a lot of points. So I could do that. And let me see if I reject it, does it just give you the points back? I never had to do that before. Let me look. Oh yeah, okay. If I reject it, it'll refund the points back. So it should refund you 750. Let me know if it doesn't work. Okay, good. So yeah, you can save them up for the future, when it'll probably mean more and you don't have to worry about wasting them. Ooh, 400 points for a watch streak. I've seen that called out, excuse me, on other people's streams, where it'll actually post a message when someone's got like a consecutive stream watch going, and it'll actually specifically mention it. I might have to find out how to enable that, and if that's something you folks want to be public, because I don't see a prompt just in our chat here that says you've been watching for X amount of consecutive streams or something like that. Up till now, I haven't really kept track of that at all, but thank you for the consecutive watch. It's very much appreciated that you decide to spend your time here listening to all the goofy stuff that we do. All right, so what are we going to be talking about today? Do a quick overview, then we'll go into some warm-ups, and then we'll go through technique, sound theory. So for the technique, sound theory period, I was doing a bit of thinking throughout the week, like I normally do before these jam streams, trying to come up with some stuff to talk about. And I will also rely on the folks in the chat, like Capri Sun, to ask questions, or if there's things you want me to talk about, feel free to mention them when we get to technique and sound theory. What we're going to be focusing on as just an overview topic is building off of some stuff from previous streams. When we talk about drills and practice, I want to go into some more detail with some intermediate and advanced recommendations for beatbox drills, for a lot of the basic sounds. We talked a little bit about it before. I want to kind of build on that discussion. So for people that are learning, as you master the basic elements of the sound kit, some potential drills that'll help you build more skill and allow you to push a little bit further instead of the kind of simple basic stuff. So we're going to talk about kind of intermediate drill recommendations and some things that I learned along the way. Breeson says, yeah, it prompts you with how many streams you've seen. Like every 2 or 3 streams, you can share whatever, but also like being here. Oh, okay. So maybe it's something that's shared by the member of chat. That's cool. But again, I appreciate everyone who stops by and just hangs out. You don't even have to be an active member of chat. I'm not going to call people out that lurk here and just like to hang out. To me, streamers that do that are kind of trash. It's not really fair. People can spend time on your content however they want, and the fact that they're there is what matters. So, okay, we'll talk about drills and practice and how that all fits together. And then for the BGM portion of the stream, we're going to try, I won't say it for the first time, but with my new audio setup where I can actually talk while I'm doing the BGM recording, we're going to do the BGM Rush challenge again. It's been a bit. Last time I did it was my old setup, so I couldn't talk, and I was basically just running through real quick concepts, putting stuff together as fast as possible. I'll re-explain how the challenge works when we get there for folks who might not have seen it before, but that'll be interesting because now I can talk while I'm doing it. And we'll see what we come up with from the BGM brainstorming perspective. And someone needs to keep me honest because I forgot to change my caption last time from technique and sound theory to BGM brainstorming, and I didn't realize it until I was looking at the archive footage, which is kind of silly. So if you see me forget to change a caption, or like we do with the small redeem or the swear timer, feel free to remind me because I'm very likely to get distracted and forget to do stuff like that. And we want to be professional here. Professional streamers. Freeson says, I'm on mobile, so I don't really see the title, just you in the chat. Oh, okay, that's fine. I'll do my best to remember. Don't worry about it, Capri Sun. It's all good. Okay, let's clear this one off. I need to fix a couple volume channels. So help us out when we actually get to the BGM section in a bit. Is everything coming across all right for sound? Do I need to tweak anything? Well, I'll find out when I start practicing. I'll be able to see the audio readout. But I think what we have is balance. I just need to make sure I don't eat the mic for some of the sounds I make. General talking, as long as I'm about here, should keep from peeking into the red. For snares, yeah, I think it should be okay. I just need to not get too close when I do the really strong snare sounds. All right, so we're gonna continue sound check and let's run through some practice freestyle stuff. I'm trying to string a bunch of things together, and we'll see how everything shakes out as we get warmed up. Capri Sun says, sounds good to me, but the mic could be tasty. I have been using this mic for a few years now in content creation, and quite a bit of that content has involved me being very close and spitting at it. I guarantee you it is not tasty. I should probably take the screen off of it at some point and wash it, but I don't even know how you do that with one of these. I'm looking at it right now. Huh. I wonder if it even comes off. Maybe it doesn't come off. Yeah, this mic has been putting in work. I actually was using this mic before I started VTubing for content in another life. But it's pretty solid. Just requires a bit of support because it is not the loudest. Hold on. I actually noticed something I need to fix. You're going to hear some thumping on my mic real quick. Oh, no, I can't take that off. All right, fine. Just need to be careful. I don't want to cut one of the main cords on here. Should be fine. Freesun says, yeah, the pop filter on mine is attached by a metal arm, so I could take it off and wash it gently. Oh, it's one of the is it one of the clamp on ones that looks like a circle, like a flexible arm that you can put in front of your mic source for a pop filter. I used to have one of those before I got this XLR. So this one, the pop filter is built in, and I don't think it comes off. Well, maybe it does. It wouldn't be glued on. I just don't know how. Oh, it's a rigid arm that came with the toner. I see. My first mic was a Blue Yeti, and now I use an SM7B. I probably won't need to replace it anytime soon. These things are made to be durable. All right. Let's go ahead and get started and kick things off with some warm up. And let's see, I'm not going to start a timer, but we'll freestyle for a bit and kind of get the blood flowing. So let's get started. Whew, all right. Let me catch up on the chat. Oh, thanks for the stretch and the hydrate. I'm drinking more of my smoothie from lunch, and then I probably have to go fill up my water bottle after that. So let me see. I don't want to miss any of the chats. Let's see. Capri Sun says, do you have any mic recommendations? Good question. I would say it depends on what you're going to be doing with it. So if you're getting into streaming / YouTube content where you're going to be talking into a mic and you need a good mic that's going to be a sound source that'll pick up sound and have it be clean and not, distorted and whatnot, and work well for basic voice work, voice over type stuff, that kind of fits into one classification, I think. And it also depends on your budget, right? You can get a really good starter mic, like the Blue Yeti, which I think you could still get on the market now, is, I want to say, less than $200, and it's pretty solid. You can use that and use sound or streaming software to tweak its levels, and it'll sound really, really good. Ooh, voice crack. I'm just thinking for a second on mics too, as I see Capri Sun's chats at the bottom, so I want to make sure I provide a good answer. Going in order though, Capri Sun asks, I have a question, like, how do you come up with freestyle? Basic techniques to string a combo together? Usually when it's stuff like warm-ups and it's just running through stuff to kind of keep it relatively simple and just practice getting everything warmed up, getting the blood flowing and all that, I just pull stuff at random. After you've been working on beatboxing and just practicing a lot, your brain will kind of gravitate towards common patterns and combinations of sounds that'll be natural, and you'll feel like you could just gravitate towards them quickly. If I'm trying to do something that's a bit more focused or thematic, then I'll have to think about it a bit harder and usually have more of a plan. But a lot of it comes down to just practicing all the techniques so that you don't have to think about doing them. All you have to do is think about what they are and pull them out into the beat and put stuff together. Kind of like an experiment. And it can be done with any combination of the techniques as well when it comes to just experimenting around and putting stuff together. Like Capri Sun's saying with the tongue click. And that's kind of the fun part about trying different combinations and just experimenting around with what you know, and then integrating stuff that you learn and adding it to the list and kind of keeping a mental running list of all the things. So when you're pulling stuff together, you're pulling from the list and then just kind of fitting things together like puzzle pieces in different orders. And that just takes practice. I wouldn't say I'm the best at it. I have to, it depends on when I'm being asked to freestyle. But back on the topic of mic recommendations, Capri Sun had said, for beatboxing, singing, recording, as well as streaming type stuff, budget isn't an issue, I can save up. Okay. So depending on, and I would do research beyond just what I tell you. I'll give you my sort of arc into the hardware that I use, because there's a couple components in addition to just the mic that definitely affect the overall sound. And I had to learn this on the fly as a streamer. And I just did some research and looked around for recommendations. So the first component is the mic, right? Your basic input device, what you're going to be using to speak into, beatbox into, sing into, etc. It's going to capture everything. There are some pretty good mid-range XLR type mics that have pretty good quality. The one that I'm using, the SM7B, is not cheap by any means, but it is not the highest end of the spectrum. I think this thing was $400. I can tell you how much it retails for now, but I've had this thing for years. It is a Shure, S-H-U-R-E, Shure SM7B. And if we go to Amazon, 400 USD, according to this. 400 USD, and it is known as pretty standard amongst like podcasters, recording artists, industry. It's used everywhere. You see in videos where people have their mic set up, it looks like a black tube, usually on an arm or on some sort of stand, like a long tapered black tube. That's usually a Shure SM7B. And like I said, they're known for being really durable and they offer really clear sound. I'm not an expert on mixing. I say that a lot. I'm always trying to mess around with parameters to make sure what I'm saying and doing sounds clear. But the SM7B, compared to what I was using before, I started with the Blue Yeti in my old content creation life, and it was fine. I didn't mess around with it too much, but it still wasn't optimized, and I knew I was going to need a better one for higher quality sound stuff anyway, so I saved up for a bit and upgraded to it. The SM7B that I've got now. But the mic is not the only component, which is why I want to talk about this a little bit. This will be our intro into technique and sound theory. It's good discussion, especially for people that are interested in beatboxing. So, in addition to a mic, you're going to need a sound interface system. The XLR mics aren't like a USB or like a mic jack type of microphone where it just plugs in directly, unless you have XLR ports on your computer or laptop, which is very uncommon. You're going to need to be able to plug the mic into something to have it go, right? Capri Sun says, let's see. Oh yeah, you could post your setup if you want. That's fine. As far as budget might be an issue, I didn't think they could be that expensive. Sound equipment is not cheap. And you definitely don't need to go straight to an SM7B. But if you want to be doing dedicated sound work and it's going to be a thing, I think it's worth saving up for something that's going to last a while. Because again, I've been using this thing for like 4 years, and I don't have any issues with it. It's very stable, it's very consistent, and I've gotten my money's worth out of it. But I had to make sure I was going to actually use it and invest in it. Presun says, I don't know what an XLR port is. If you take a look, I don't know if they'll show it on the Amazon listing. Let me see. You'll see it if you go just search on Amazon, Shure, SHURE, SM7B. One of the recommended things that people say to buy with it are the cables. An XLR has two ends, so it's not identical ends, kind of like a USB. One end looks like 3 metal prongs, and the other end looks like 3 metal, or like a 3-prong entrance. And it's basically a specific cable type that's used for sound equipment. And it's a unique cable that has to be connected into something, which is why I said you need a sound interface device in addition to just the mic itself. And so what I use, and I think Wazi uses the same thing. She usually either uses the same one or one iteration before. But I use a Scarlett. And Scarlett, which is spelled like normal with 2 T's, the one I'm using is a Scarlett 2.0, I think. I'm talking about hardware. Let's see, is it the Scarlett Solo? I think it is, No, it's not the Solo. I'm looking at mine. Mine's kind of tucked behind my monitor and speakers. But this one has 2 knobs on it. Oh, I think it's this. No, it's not the 2nd gen. It's one of the ones in the middle. 4th gen, maybe? I think it's the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th gen. Whatever it is, it's the one that has a bunch of individual volume knobs, gain knobs, a master volume knob. I think it's the 4th gen. I could go look at my Amazon history, but that'd take a minute to dig up. Hey, Red Dragon's here. Hey, what's up, Red Dragon? Welcome to the stream. We're actually talking about sound hardware right now, and I know you stream a bit and you do work on content, so you might find some of this stuff relevant and talking about mics and sounds and whatnot, sound equipment. But it's okay, Capri-san. This stuff is relevant to people that are getting into beatboxing as well. So it's worth talking about. And the Scarlett itself, I think, was a couple $100. It's also considered kind of a workhorse standard. It is very, very solid. I haven't had issues with my Scarlett, and I've been using that one for as long as I've had my mic. For the SM7B, and this is something that I had to kind of look up, and I didn't know initially when I bought it. It's known for its clarity, as far as sound goes, its clarity, its consistency, durability. But what the SM7B is not known for is power. Compared to some of the other mics on the market, and I couldn't tell you which ones, but some of the other ones have a bit more oomph behind them, more power, more volume, essentially. When I say power, I mean primarily volume. The SM7B is quiet. It's quiet, and it doesn't have any sort of internal power to it. So it, one, has to be run off phantom power. So your sound device, be it a Scarlett or something like a loop station. And whenever we're doing beatbox stuff like this, like right now, my mic is plugged into my loop station, not my Scarlett. When I stream, it's plugged in, this mic is plugged into my Scarlett, and that's what's powering the mic. When I'm doing loop stuff, beatbox stuff, I have the mic plugged into my loop station, and that's what's powering the microphone. And so that's why it sounds a little bit different whenever I'm doing beatbox jam streams versus when I'm doing regular streams. Sound output's different because my settings and devices are different. So I get to play cable musical chairs when it comes to what's plugged in and running. But when I first got my mic and set it up with the Scarlett, it worked fine, but it was very quiet. The sound was pretty clear, and once I tweaked some stuff, it came through fine, but it was very soft. The volume was low, even at maxed out settings just on the Scarlett itself. So what I found in reading about the mic I've got is it's known for being a little bit quiet, so it needs a supplementary boost to its power in order for it to be louder. And that was easy enough to fix. I got a device called a cloud lifter, which that wasn't too expensive. I think it was less than $100. But the cloud lifter is something that plugs in. Like basically, you take the mic cables via XLR, you plug it in the cloud lifter, and the cloud lifter plugs into your sound output or interface device. So it goes mic, cloud lifter, Scarlett, normally. And what the cloud lifter does is it boosts the mic. Basically offers a power boost to the mic output, hence making it louder. So when you hear me on my regular streams, the mic that I'm using is running through a cloud lifter before it hits my Scarlett, and that's what gives me the volume to be able to talk to you people and be able to hear it. Without it, it'd be very quiet. It would be maybe half the audio level of what you normally hear. Because you can up the gain and boost on the Scarlett itself, but you'll be at max settings and it still won't be very loud. I tested it. That's a problem I had early on. So if you go for the SM7B, it's going to be a good mic, and it'll probably last you a long time as long as you're not, rough with it. But it needs additional power in order to get up there so that it's got some more strength to it. But even the SM7B plus the cloud lifter plus the Scarlett was less expensive than one of the highest end mics. Wasn't really sure I wanted to commit 4 figures to all that right off the bat. But a lot of it's just kind of researching around and seeing what's going to function for what you need. I would say you don't need to go for like the mid-range stuff initially, but if you do save up and invest in it, it's going to last a while. And so that's kind of a quick overview about sound equipment. I'm not an expert in sound tech at all. Wazzy would be a good person to ask, or Matt, because they're content creators and they've done a lot of this technical work. So they're also good people to ask as far as opinions on sound equipment and what works for them. I know Wazzy has a different mic than I do. I think she has a slightly different XLR type mic, or it could be a condenser. I don't know. I don't remember when I saw her setup. But hopefully that's helpful. Again, Capri-san was asking about mics and recommendations and stuff. And hopefully it's at least a data point and in figuring out what you want to do with your setup, and obviously your budget's the biggest factor. A lot of things to consider. But yeah, I'm always willing to answer questions to the best of my ability. All right, let me change the topic real quick. Griston says it was. I learned a lot. Oh, good. Good. Uh, all I can kind of present is my experience and the stuff that I learned. But a lot of it was just through researching and looking up stuff on Google when it came to what people recommended and what people used. Okay, so what are we talking about for technique and sound theory? Again, like I said earlier at the top of the stream, feel free to ask any related questions, beatbox technique and stuff. This is designed to be open forum. I just come up with some ideas of things that I want to talk about, and then we can sidebar for whatever things folks want to talk about or have questions on. So in the past, we've talked a little bit about drills and practicing. Not exactly the most sexy thing to talk about when it comes to any sort of skill, but there's a lot to kind of discuss when it comes to how to implement drills into practicing effectively. And I think talking about that and kind of building on that discussion is helpful for folks that are trying to get into beatboxing, right? Not necessarily me telling you should practice this way so much as here's some ideas that I used that helped me when I was learning and still help me to this day. I've never stopped learning and I'm not really an expert at all. But in giving you guys tools to be able to use and figure out, hey, maybe this is going to work for me as I'm learning, that's all the discussion really is from my perspective. Presun says to become a master, you must first master the basics. Yep, we've talked about basics a lot. And the drills I'm going to talk about today are going to be building up a level as far as from beginner. We're going to look kind of more intermediate as a way to step up the complexity. So as people get familiar with like the real basic stuff, this will maybe give you some ideas for things to kind of level up to, and then it'll push you because you don't want to be comfortable too long when you're learning any sort of skill. And that's not like any profound philosophy. The reality is if you get comfortable, then you stop learning. And the more you challenge yourself, the more it's going to push you to want to get better. And so hopefully this stuff will kind of be in line with that. So to start, we talked a lot about the basic toolkit, right? Basic sounds of a drum kit that go into beatboxing. And it's the kick drum, the hat, and the snare. We've hit on those quite a bit, maybe too much at this point, but in the interest of keeping things kind of accessible to people who might not have been on the older jam streams, that's why I tend to overlap a lot of what I talk about here, just so people can also know that they can refer back to a lot of these stream archives and not have to hunt for one specific discussion that was only in one stream, if that makes sense. But we talk about the three components, the kick, the hat, and the snare. And we're going to start with the kick. I'm not going to go through the mechanics of how to do it at this point. We've talked a bit about kind of the early basic stuff a while ago, and I think you could probably find it in those streams. But for the basic kick, just a kind of the backbone of most, not all, but most beats is the driving kick drum. Resun says, I've switched to my headphones to help me focus purely on this. I'm locked in and ready to learn. Okay. Well, get your notepads ready. There might be a test later. Maybe not. But take the kick. We talked about when you're first learning and trying to get control over keeping time and just being able to do the sound consistently. You're probably going to be just doing quarter note drills if you're practicing sound by sound, which is just and that's where pretty much everybody starts. Maybe not everyone starts purely just drilling one sound at a time. They probably start creating basic beats and getting used to that. But like we talked about before, when it comes to using a metronome to make sure you're keeping time, staying on beat and whatnot, that's also pretty important. I probably won't bust out the metronome today unless I have to, but as you get comfortable at doing the sound for the kick, and again, graduate from quarter notes, and that's basically, you do it in your sleep, right? You can do quarter note just all day long, probably boring after, learning for a few weeks or so of a lot of the basics. We talk about upping the level of complexity. So in addition to just speed, we're going to talk about speed first, and then we'll talk about complexity when it comes to the drills. The logical next step is to practice doing eighth notes for kicks. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically double timing it up to an eighth note. So again, sounds fairly simple, but that would sound like. Sounds pretty basic in concept, but one thing that's challenging early on, in addition to just speed, is maintaining power. Because until you get lip strength and kind of muscle memory for doing a lot of the sounds, you'll be able to do them at any degree of speed, but being able to maintain the strength of the sound and not have it sort of taper off as you start adding more sounds is another thing to keep in mind when practicing. So, as kind of an exaggerated example for using the higher speed, I recommend, and this is just something I've been testing, you folks can tell me if it works for you. As you upgrade the speed of what you're doing it, my recommendation is to put more power into it at the same time to either maintain or increase the level of force of the technique. So what I mean by that is, if we're doing the quarter notes at just 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we switch it to eighth notes, instead of doing the same amount of force, we're going to try and push it harder a little bit for the eighth notes, because it's making us practice both the intensity and the speed instead of just one or the other. So if we did that, it would be, and again, this is going to be exaggerated, but kind of pushing it harder for the eighth note count on the drills. We get something like. And I don't know if it's really that audible on the broadcast, but if I didn't do that and just did it normally, it would sound like. The force is, I'd say, about 40% lower than pushing it a bit harder to get the. And I'm not saying you need to do it that way all the time, but if you practice that way, then you learn not to lose a lot of the strength behind the technique as it gets faster. And so moving into the more intermediate, closer to advanced levels of training for something like kicks, you switch from eighth notes to 16th notes, and that's when it gets difficult. And so going from to like a constant run of kicks, which is pretty much what 16th notes are without doing things like triplets or whatnot, you would get something that sounds like. And that is harder to do. In fact, I'm not even an expert at doing that because I don't really do beats that way with 16th note single kicks. But that is just practicing the speed and then also mixing in the power so that you're not getting like a bunch of quiet. You could do that if you want, if that's the intention. But instead of just having a real quiet 16th note, just sound like a little dribble of sound, just pushing it harder and trying to make it forceful maintains the level of sound as the speed goes up. Hence, you're getting the. Capri Sun says, Jesus Machine Gun Rocco over here. That takes practice. I don't even do it that well to me. But if we take it and let's try and mix in some actual beat examples instead of just doing these in like a vacuum. So taking the 16th notes, for example, because that's the most complex. I can't do 30-second notes kicks. That's faster than I can do, and it's faster than I think is really practical. But let's say we were doing like a dubstep-ish type beat, and we wanted to have rapid 16th note type kicks as part of the main rhythm, right? And I have a song that I wrote that sounds kind of like this, which is why the example popped into my brain. But let's say we're doing something that sounds like. That's a better example. And that's triplets, but it's a triplet 16th note. And you can tell how it sort of slots in there, and it adds a bit more complexity to the ear, but you have to kind of practice that speed to be able to do it on demand. And to that end, I would also recommend varying the kind of clustering of the rhythm sections in addition to just making them straight speed. So what I mean by that is doing things like triplets. And you could start with quarter notes and you move up the same way: quarter note, eighth note, 16th notes, but then you do triplets. And triplets are 3 at a time. That's what the musical term means. So instead of quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, it would be 1, 2, 3. Actually, I don't think you can do quarter note triplets. I'm really bad with official music terminology, but you're grouping them into 3 at a time instead of just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I think it has to be eighth notes to start. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, it would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I like a 3/4 rhythm now that I think about it, which is the time signature I hate the most. Freesun says, "Oh yeah, I tried to freestyle and I'm going to have to learn some techniques that let me breathe in because otherwise I'm going to die eventually. A few seconds was hard. I wonder if I'm actually asthmatic. I was diagnosed, but Jesus." That is one of the things that we've talked about a bit throughout the jam streams up till now, is not only just learning breathing techniques to increase your lung capacity, but learning how to manage air as part of the beats and patterns and routines that you're doing. Because if you're brand new to beatboxing, let's say you're not a singer or any sort of musician that requires using your lungs for something like that, that's pretty challenging, I can tell you now, just because you have to manage not only making the sounds and doing all that, but figuring out how to structure things so you can breathe, so you don't pass out on your feet and hit the floor. You definitely don't want that. And so we can talk about that more if you want. And if we want to talk about breathing and air control, Capri Sun, just let me know. We can always work that in the discussion here today as far as some basic techniques as we talk about drills and whatnot. So just let me know. Well, back on the topic of triplets. So you could do things like triplet patterns and trying to keep it at a slow enough level that's manageable in the beginning. You might go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and again, 3 counts. So for the actual kick pattern, it would be sounds kind of like a gallop almost. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that is going to train your brain to think in a pattern that's not just single note chains. Instead of it being 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, now you're getting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you ratchet up the speed for that, and now you start crossing into the zone of, does it make sense to do them fast in singles or to do like a BTB for a triple kick? And what I mean by that is, if you go up in speed, you can have something like that's a one way to do a triple kick, singles in 3 at a time. Or if you use the BTB pattern, which is taking the B sound and putting a really light T hat in between and doing that and another B so quickly it sounds like a multiple kick. So you could do that like and again, it sounds slightly different than just doing. So you have that, and then you have, and it's 2 different ways to do essentially the same thing. So it's good to experiment around with both. And it gives you some variety. Kind of taking that idea, you can also do rapid double kicks, kind of like you would see in metal. And that would just be doing 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 really fast. And that'd be, that's breaking it up, but then you start putting them close together. That sounds more like a gallop to me. and then experimenting around with the rapid kicks versus the BTBs, and you can start getting something like blast beats and doing sustained like rolls of like double bass pedal kicks. That's really fun once you start working up to that level, and it's a really good way to practice getting precision and speed. And that's not something I do a lot, but I should do more. But just to kind of illustrate what that sounds like in a real kind of sloppy example, if you're doing like double bass pedal kicks, it would sound like, and you could do things like kind of put it into bursts too, which is really fun. So if you're doing like a semi blast beat type of rhythm, you might have something, and like you switch up little variations. You know, you might have singles and then triples and then BTB triples. So that might be something like, and you can play around with it a lot once you get comfortable with kind of the speed and chaining things together. And practicing that way will give you a lot of interesting variations to use in beats. On the topic of air, Capri Sun says, I can do some research on my own. I need to know anyhow. I'm not just entirely relying on you. I'm not paying you to teach. I don't want to be rude or ask too much of you. Oh, no, I wouldn't worry about that. These streams are meant to be kind of like a discussion / resource to refer back in the future if you ever want to use it to help learn. And again, I don't plan a rigid agenda of stuff to talk about. I just come up with an idea and then we talk about it. And sometimes we talk about sidebars and other things, but that's perfectly fine. The time is meant to be however we want to use it. So you don't have to worry about asking too many questions or getting off topic. It's not like a lesson plan. You know, I'm not a course instructor. It's just a time for us to talk about beatboxing stuff and things related to beatboxing, like the sound equipment, which is relevant. And everything's on the table. We can talk about any techniques you want. If you want to talk about lip rolls, then we can segue into lip rolls. If you want to talk about like tongue-based techniques like we talked about before, anything is open season for discussion here. And that applies no matter, you know, what I've set as the quote unquote topic. So don't worry about that. In fact, today I actually have a bit more relaxed of a schedule than normal on the weekends. So I'm not necessarily locked into a 2-hour stream slot like normal. I do have to go grocery shopping later, but I don't need to do that right away. So we don't really have a strict time frame, and I want to definitely spend a lot of time messing around with fun stuff on the BGM Rush. So again, no rigid schedule. We can talk about whatever. Presun says, gotcha. Sorry, my borderline personality disorder makes me ask for reassurance frequently, and I don't know why or how to stop, unfortunately. That's okay. That's not a problem, Capri Sun. You don't have to worry about stuff like that when you're talking to me. I'm not going to speak for other streams and other people. Obviously, I can't. But here, when it comes to the discussions, unless I say, hey, we're sticking to a topic right now and let's focus. If anything, if something comes up, I might say, okay, put a mental note and let's get through this topic and then we'll talk about that topic and we'll do it in order as opposed to like breaking it up. But again, I tend to run these things pretty loose. So don't worry about it. I don't want people stressing on about when or where they can ask questions in like this setting. So it's all good. Presun says, then yeah, if you want to talk about breath control. So let's do this. Let's try and connect the topics. Okay, we're talking about drills, and we started with kicks, and I'll talk about hats and snares in a second. But let's take the idea of the drills and combine it with the breathing idea that Capri Sun was asking about when it comes to how to sort of weave the concepts together so that they're working symbiotically, if that makes sense. So I'm not really an expert on breathing from like a respiratory perspective. I'm not a doctor, obviously. As far as you folks know, I'm definitely not a doctor. When it comes to breathing and beatboxing and air management, part of it is just training your lungs for capacity. Like we talked about doing the deep breathing exercises as part of warm up, which was recommended to me by one of the beatboxers I studied under for a bit. Doing the deep breathing exercises conditions your lungs to have more air. It's something musicians do kind of naturally if they're a wind instrument player or a vocalist. For string-based instruments or rhythm percussion, they obviously don't need to train for that specifically. But doing practice for capacity will give you more air to work with. That's one component. Priestson asked, drill to stress your cardiovascular skills. That I can't really speak on too much, since beatboxing is not really intensive on cardiovascular so much as it's intensive on respiratory, specifically with lungs, right? Breathing and whatnot, it could be kind of connected to like endurance for cardiovascular, but I really couldn't speak on that with any authority. So instead, I'm going to kind of talk about how to manage what you're doing when it comes to breathing and structuring stuff. And again, I'm not an expert, but this is what I've kind of learned along the way. So here's what I recommend for a drill to get your brain kind of tuned towards figuring out where are good places to stop and breathe when you do beatboxing. That's kind of the point of the discussion, right? Over time, as you kind of get used to doing the sounds and you do the sounds consistently, you want to start thinking a little bit about where logical places to stop and breathe make sense in the pattern you're constructing. And that takes a little bit of experimentation. There's no hard and fast rule about how it works. But like, here's an example. Let's say you put together a simple rhythm. We'll use that kind of dubstep adjacent beat that we did before and kind of simplify it for the sake of the example. Let's say you had the beat that sounds like and we'll use this as an example. I'll try and explain this the best I can. Let me know if it's not clear. But each component of the rhythm, each bar, plays for a certain amount and then it repeats, right? So you do the set amount of the rhythm and then you're repeating it over and over again. So in this case, the is roughly, that's 2 repeats of the rhythm. And then you can do things like add fills or technicality in between. Let's just not worry about that for now and look at just the actual construction of it bar by bar, measure by measure. Initially, you're probably going to have to figure out for yourself how much lung capacity you have to be able to do X amounts of the repeats of that rhythm. So again, you might be able to do 2 comfortably and be fine. But if you do 3, it might be pushing it, and by 4, you're dying before the end of the rhythm even comes out. One thing that's kind of important to just keep in mind is, for the listener, when someone is hearing you make these sounds and making these sections of the rhythm, again, we're not incorporating like vocalized bass or other types of things that are going to draw more of your air. Just pure rhythm construction for each part. What you wouldn't want to do is have it be a situation where you're doing the rhythm and then you're stopping to breathe in the middle, because it's going to sound like it's broken up the actual measure. So what I mean by that is, if you did something like that, where you're stopping to breathe in the middle, then it breaks up everything and it sounds really jarring to the ear. Instead, I think it's a little more helpful to think about trying to fit in your breathing after you've completed one cycle, where it makes kind of a more natural place to pause. So instead, we flip the example around. So now we do something like, and if you hear a quick breath after the rhythm is done and getting ready to repeat for another cycle, but it has to be fast, because if you stop too long, it's still going to sound like it was broken up and dropped. And so if you think about where the rhythm sections are starting and stopping and trying to time where you're going to be breathing so that it's naturally in between like a rhythm repeat, that's a good place to start at a basic level. And that just takes a little bit of practice, because and on the flip side of that, now that I think about it, you wouldn't want to be stopping to breathe too much or you'll hyperventilate. So you wouldn't want to be doing like a breath after every repeat, because that would sound like. And I think realistically, you're going to be breathing in more air than you're getting rid of anyway, and it's going to force you to stop and you're going to have to exhale everything. Capri Sun says that was more natural than the first one. Right, that's the whole point. So you want to sort of naturally think of, when we're talking about breathing in, breathing out follows the same sort of methodology. And you'd want to kind of think logically, okay, if I'm listening to this, is stopping to breathe here gonna be jarring to the listener and sound like everything is kind of broken up? Or can I wait a little bit later and fit the breath in here where it would be more natural, and then allow me to just keep continuing and proceeding on as seamlessly as possible? And part of the challenge is figuring out how much air to breathe at any one given time. Like, a good example would be, let's say you're doing that same rhythm, you're doing the, and you're reaching the end of your supply of air. The bar is depleting and it's about to bottom out and hit zero. Well, if you wait till it completely depletes and hits zero, you're going to have to take a larger breath. Hence, you're going to have to either do it faster or you're going to have to take a longer pause. So one thing you could do is take a breath in a sooner in less repeats and take less of a breath, so you're refilling the bar a little bit instead of trying to refill the bar all at once. So it could be as simple as that's every two. Every one is too much. I think you'll hyperventilate and or overfill your lungs. But every two, at least in learning, taking that smaller breath after every two repeats is going to be easier, faster, and more seamless than waiting four and taking a big breath, at least until you get more control. Like if I think, let me think how many repeats I can do before I have to physically stop and breathe. With that, just that example, I'll count them on my hand. So let's see. Seven total before I have to physically stop and breathe no matter what. Instead of waiting 7 measures, which is an odd number, which could be really noticeable to the ear, I'm probably more likely to stop after 4 or 6 to get that breath. Because 1, it'll be on an even count of measures, and 2, I won't have to take in as much air. I could probably have pushed it to 8, but I'd be dying by the end of the 8th bar and have to stop and take a huge breath. So in experimenting around with how much air you need to get back when it comes to breathing in is something to just kind of mess around with when it comes to the composition and how you're putting stuff together. And obviously the faster the beat goes, the more you have to think about that, because you're probably going to be burning through air fast. So let's do a different example and just compare. That slower dubstep-ish type beat, again, my max capacity was about 7 comfortably. Let's try and do like a fast drum and bass that has more sounds to it per measure, and see. Let's compare what the difference is when it comes to the overall draw on air supply. So let's see, for drum and bass, let's do something like again, faster, using more sounds at once, but now I'm going to count how many I can do on one breath and compare it to the slower example, and just to see where it falls. So let's see, we do. Okay, I had to make sure I stopped after I breathed. 10. I counted 10 repeats. unless I was off by 1, but let's say 10 for the sake of the example. A little bit different because it's faster, hence you're going to be doing more measures at once, but it definitely is putting a different level of strain because of the amount of sounds you're doing. And if you're doing like a vocalized bass on top of that, then the amount of time you can go before you need to breathe is going to go down considerably. Like we do, again, we could just do the same exact example, but add like a vocalized bass in between, and I'll count it again. So I might do something like it gets to about 10, but it's definitely a lot more stress at 10. I could feel like I'm going to need to take a breath at 11 no matter what. Maybe I could push out a little bit at 11, but I'd be dying versus the previous example without the bass. I probably could have gone 11 or 12, but it would have suffered. And then after 12, it'd be like taking a giant breath in, and then it derails the whole thing. So to kind of tie in the whole discussion about breathing, think about it as far as what sounds natural, like Capri Sun said, to the ear when it comes to where you're going to break up parts of your beat when you're learning, and then try to figure out what's going to make the most sense when it comes to breathing in a little or breathing in a lot. And then the kind of more advanced and upper level evolution of that discussion is figuring out how to use sounds in between that are going to get you more air without causing your whole pattern to stop and get disrupted. That's a little more advanced. We've talked about it a bit, doing things like the inward lip rolls, inward drags, any sort of inward sound as part of the rhythm and component. There is like an infinite breathing, quote unquote, hack in beatboxing that if you structure your composition well and efficiently, you don't have to stop to breathe ever. And I think I've demonstrated that before. It was a while ago though, where I basically said, okay, I'm going to try and go for as long as possible without breathing and just see if I can think on my feet fast enough to give myself enough tools that are going to do that. And I can't remember where I did it, but that's an interesting challenge, like a personal challenge to try and do and push yourself to say, okay, I'm going to use my tool set. Can I actually do this without breathing or stopping to breathe? They're still breathing, but without physically stopping and breathing. And it's absolutely possible. You just have to be able to have a good command of the tools. And I can try and demonstrate here. I didn't plan on doing this, and it's not going to really affect the lesson, but let me try and do something simple enough. And basically we'll do like an informal timer. Like we don't have to run a timer or anything, but we'll kind of just do a mental timer for how long I can do like a string of beats before I have to stop and breathe. And actively doing that is much tougher than just doing a regular freestyle, because you have to think about what you're going to do that's going to allow you to not have to stop and breathe. And I do it so instinctively now, I got to try and turn that off. Capri Sun says, I want to do that. The limit's your muscles. I would say the limit's your brain more than anything else, because you have to be thinking, okay, I'm doing this beat, putting all these things together, but I'm running out of air. How can I mix in a sound that's going to allow me to get air back without having to stop and breathe? So muscle memory, once you know the techniques, is really not an issue, or muscle strength or endurance isn't as big of an issue. It's being able to think on your feet and use your brain to slot stuff in quickly. That's the biggest challenge and limitation, I think. But Presun says, yeah, but I think in music, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's a little bit different for different types of music in a way. So like if you were a wind instrument player, a lot of it's going to be more strenuous on muscles, like in your face and your lip muscles when you're playing a musical instrument. So that's a bigger limitation. Not so much in beatboxing unless you're doing specific types of sounds. Like if you're doing nothing but lip rolls, yeah, that's going to tax your muscles. Or yeah, like a violinist, same thing. You can't infinitely just be whacking away at a violin. Your arms are going to get tired and fall off. Your digits. So for beatboxing, it's a little bit unique because it doesn't stress muscles as much, and lung power wise purely depends on what you're doing. So again, it comes down to how you can think and put stuff together. So let's try it. Let's try and do a quick example, and we'll just see. I'm going to probably be, it's going to look like I'm looking up since I tend to do that when I'm thinking as opposed to looking at the camera. But let me see if I can string together stuff without breathing, and we'll just see how it goes on the fly. This isn't something that I've thought about recently, but I have done it before. So let's try it. Whew. Okay, that's made me sweat. It is not terribly hot where I'm at right now, but I'm sweating after doing that and having to focus for that long. That stretch was, I want to say, a few minutes, maybe 3.5, 4 minutes. I didn't look at the time. But that entire stretch for that entire beat, again, no bass, just pure rhythm sounds and transitional sounds. I didn't stop to breathe in once that entire time. Like, I was breathing. I would have, fallen over and you would have heard a loud thump if I wasn't breathing. But any of the actual exchanges of air inwards and outwards were part of the beat itself. Like, you might have heard me go a couple times, which sounds like kind of like a breathy hat-ish. That was me breathing out. Through that entire example, I had more issues getting the air out than getting the air in. Because I was doing inward case snares, so the is constantly bringing in little bits of air. And because I was doing it as part of the main snare as a staple, I was bringing in more air than I was expelling. So the intake outweighed the output. So you would hear me in between a lot of things as filler of the beats, again, breathing out, but making it part of the rhythm so I wasn't having to stop and cease the rhythm and go. Instead, it'd be something like chaining it to a kick. So you might hear something like, or something like that. So it sounds like it's integrated into the rhythm and doesn't break up the flow of everything. And then I tried mixing in other sounds like the regular lip rolls, which doesn't get you air. It's using mouth pressure. It's just a sustain essentially, but also mixing in things like the low inward lip roll, which brings in a ton of air. So if I did like a real quick technicality pattern that pushed a bunch of air out at once, I'm equalizing it by doing an inner lip roll after that. And then just mixing all the things together and trying to think on the fly. That's the biggest challenge. While, again, saying, brain, do not stop and breathe in. Do not stop and breathe in. Instead, put the sounds together, then get the air, and then now breathe out, breathe out. Your lungs are too full. You got to get rid of the air. And then that's what it was. Capri Sun says the beatboxing also probably would have stopped. Well, yeah, if I passed out on my feet, you hear like an abrupt stop and then a thump. And then the stream would just be sitting here. We definitely don't want that. But that's kind of a really basic example of how knowing the toolkit and knowing what things you have can allow you to construct things to where, again, you don't have to stop and breathe. You still are breathing. Capri Sun says, then we call Wazzy. She does have my phone number. That is true. Like, hey, this guy passed out. She'd probably be like, whatever. He'll be fine. He's walking off. But yeah, I don't want to make it sound like it's some sort of magical thing you can do, but knowing the tool set can really allow you to construct things that'll basically make it seem like you have infinite air. But if you listen really closely, you can hear different parts of the instruments where the air is either going in or coming out. Intake versus output. And that's just something that takes practice, but it is kind of fun to mess around with. Like, can't remember the last time I tried, but I think I did it for like 10 minutes once just to see how long I could do it while thinking about it. And I went like around 10 minutes of doing random freestyle stuff, switching styles, switching sounds and whatnot. But I basically did it without stopping to breathe. And it's really good practice in general when we talk about drills. So I would say mess around with it, but don't push it too hard, especially if you have like an existing condition with breathing. But just practice. Start small when you practice and then work up and just kind of see what makes sense for you. Pre-Sun says, yeah, I can only go for 10 seconds. You did multiple minutes. Well, I had to learn. When I was first starting out, again, I have a bit of a background learning how to sing and whatnot, so I had a bit more lung control than a person starting completely cold, but I had no idea how to manage beatboxing because it's an entirely different skill set. So I just had to learn over time. Just practice. And so since we're moving close to an hour and a half, I do want to move on to BGM stuff. But just since we spent so much time talking about kicks and then we worked in a bunch of other things, the same method of training for speed and drills works the same way for hats and snares. Start slow on like quarter notes. Slow 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 for hats. Hats might seem a little more kind of basic, but your ability to do hats accurately and quick is really, really handy to have. Because you take something like a closed hat, just for example, so those are eighth notes. Being able to do that is good, but if you can get hat runs, which are rapid, really rapid hits, like 16th notes, my 16th notes aren't the cleanest, but hats are kind of unique in that you can change the sound slightly while doing these repetitive drills. And you can do some really cool things with the runs. So just like you're opening and closing a hat with like the foot pedal, you have versus open versus closed. You can do something like and really mess around with the rhythm and doing them back to back. Because you can change the sound just by slightly changing the way your tongue positioning is from like a t versus tss. You can do a lot of really cool rhythm change things. Capri Sun says hats sound cool. Should learn some. You definitely want to learn hats. Hats are supplementary to a lot of beats. And you could do nothing but close just T sounds, just and have that be the main one you use. But being able to switch up things gives you so much more variation. Again, think about like a simple jazz rhythm with like a brush on a closed or open hi-hat, something like That's just practicing. We're doing snake jazz from Rick and Morty, essentially. Or shout out to my boy Serpentius from Hasbin. Practicing a lot of that stuff will give you a lot of flavor to your beats. It's worth doing, and it gives you a lot more tongue control and accuracy too. You could do something like, that's another example. And then it's just practicing that in drill form, not just in a rhythm, but in a drill form. Is practicing variations, changing things up. Start with just a, and then change the sound slightly, and then work that in. Freesun says, love him. He better be in season 2. I think Penches will be in season 2. I think he's going to be really important in season 2. Plups just caught up last night. They watched the most recent 2 episodes, so we were talking a bit about it. A lot of discussion for Has-Been. But I really enjoyed it. If you haven't seen Has-Been Hotel and have access to it, I highly recommend it. It's a great show. But I guess to tie up the last part of the drill discussion before we move on, for snares, again, same idea. You can do things like practice your snares slowly at first, and as you get comfortable, you start doing them more rapidly, and then you start doing things like affecting rhythms and whatnot. So like for the PF snare, again, quarter notes, and that's harder. I think everyone should practice snares in drill format like that. It'll teach you to get better at them and more consistent. But you start picking up the pace to eighth notes. For PF snares, that's harder to do. I'm not terribly good at it, but you would get something like, I can do a lot less of those before I have to breathe because it takes more air. But you ratchet that up to like 16s. I don't even know if I can do 16th notes for PF. I know other people can, so I should probably drill for that. But it would be, nope. My 16 note PF snares are pretty much non-existent. I should go and practice that. But in drilling that way, you can definitely condition your muscle memory to be able to do things that fast. I just can't think of an example where I would use 16th notes in a beat, but it's good practice. It's good to be able to do. And then the same thing goes for the other types of snares. Capri Sun says, skill issue, says the amateur. Oh, it absolutely is a skill issue. I know the meme of saying that, of course, but it really is a skill issue when it comes to how effectively and fast you can do things. Because I've heard other beatboxers do like rapid fire machine gun PF snares. It sounds really cool, but I don't train that way. So maybe I need to start doing that and get better at it, because I think nothing more than like a double I would use practically in a beat, but you definitely can. You might do something like, that's not a good example because that's a kick PF, a PF kick PF. If you're doing, I can't even do a triple. I could do a triple with a kick in the middle, like a BTB. So that'll be, that's the, huh. All right, well, I got some homework to do. Freesun says I can do the bass line from Supernatural. I think it's called a bass line. I don't know Supernatural, so I wouldn't know the bass line just from reference. But it is good practice to be able to use what you learn to replicate something you know. That's how a lot of people, that's how I learn too, is saying like, oh, I'm going to take something familiar and try and replicate it with beatbox technique, and that's really good practice. In fact, I can't remember what stream we're doing. I think it was God Hand with Wazzy and Matt. And, Superstitious. Yeah. That one's got a killer bass line. Great song. But I think we're playing God Hand, and I was like, the topic of theme songs or something came up, and we were talking, I was messing around, and I said, I think the best theme song would be, and then I just let that sit out there for a bit and just see what people would react to it, and people did react. It was pretty funny. But being able to, again, use what you've learned to replicate something you've heard is really good practice for beatboxing, and it can make for some really funny things. Capri-san says, did they not like it? I thought it was all right. I wasn't there. Oh, and it wasn't a matter of liking it. It's more a matter of do people recognize where it's from, not whether or not they liked it, because the whole joke is that it's something that a lot of people, maybe not everybody, definitely not everybody, but a lot of people know and recognize. And that was the joke. And everyone's like, all right. Very funny, haha. Capri-san says, oh yeah, I don't think I know it. Pretty sure you do. It's the Pornhub theme. I'm not making any assumptions about anybody, but even the just joke of people using the Pornhub theme and all sorts of stuff. It's kind of like a good litmus paper test too. Like if you can do that as a beatboxer and be like, oh yeah, I came up with this really cool routine or this pattern. What do you think of it? And you bust out and someone's like, wait a minute. And you're like, aha, I gotcha. That's part of the fun of beatboxing, is being able to do goofy stuff like that. All right. So let's move on to BGM. I think definitely a good discussion. We don't usually talk about technique and sound theory for an hour and a half, but definitely a lot of interesting topics covered. Hopefully it's helpful in talking about drilling and then talking about air management. Pre-Sun says, I didn't immediately recognize it because I'm high. That's fine. In fact, it's probably better to not just immediately recognize it, but we're just messing around here. It's all good. But let me change my captions. I forgot to do it last time. Let me do that real quick. So I don't know, Capri-san, I can't remember if you were here for the last time we did it. I've only done this once. It was maybe a couple months ago as an experiment, and it was my old sound setup, so I couldn't talk. So let me switch my setup around so I can talk, and then I'll explain how the BGM Rush works. Just, again, in case you weren't here. So I need to switch my mic settings. Give me one sec. I should be coming in loud and clear again, but you should not be able to, if it's going to sound a little different, this is, again, my regular streaming setup that I have this plugged into now. So let me know if I am not audible. I'm getting audio here on OBS, so it should be all right. Now, let's make sure the synth and the loop station is still coming through. Okay, that's good. In fact, I need to turn this completely off. Capri-sun says, I've learned the tongue clicking thing I can do doesn't rely on my lungs. That's correct. If you're doing just a regular type of tongue click, one of the handy things about it is because it doesn't use any lung power. Again, I don't mind talking about stuff. I'm not derailing anything. But it is kind of interesting because we're talking about how air control affects what you do when you beatbox, yeah? So if you take and here's a good practice example. Try this out on your own time, Capri Sun. Practice layering sounds on top of a click. And don't worry about kicks or anything. Just practice layering a hummed note, not a distorted throat bass note, just a hummed note and a click at the same time. So just a plus the click. Force the sound to come out of your nose instead of out of your mouth, which is what you're doing when you're humming. Like, for example, my mouth is closed when I'm doing this, so all you're hearing is coming from my nose. I actually had my hand over my mouth when I was doing it just to prove the point. But if you take that example and you take that hum note and you practice the layering of doing the click at the same time, you get something like and just practice that. That will get you a foot in the door as far as learning how to layer. Pre-Sun says, I'm having major facial surgery in a few months, so I won't be able to beatbox for a while, I just realized. Well, you'll just have to make some notes of things you want to learn, and then once you fully recover and you'll be able to do it, then you just jump back into it. You definitely want to push it while you're in recovery because that could cause a lot of damage. But I'm sure during that time, we'll be doing a lot of these beatbox streams because they're a regular thing here. So you could still ask questions and learn a lot without having to actually be able to do it. Just be careful, okay? I don't want to be the cause of someone injuring themselves after, a major procedure just because we're messing around with beatboxing. But yeah, for that quick example, since you can do the tongue click thing, practice layering with humming. Because once you kind of get used to learning how to layer stuff, and again, just a real quick example, that's how I did one of the earliest beats that I ever made and recorded, which was called Super Bossa Nova. It's a very simple take on like a bossa nova type song, but it uses layering and clicks with kicks to do at the same time. And I should probably do something with that one. It's on one of the early releases for the BGM collection. I think the very first one. But Super Bossa Nova sounds like very simple. It's got like 2 variations to it, and then it keeps going forever. But that throws people whenever I've done it live because people, their brains initially have to parse out how the sounds are happening at the same time. But because the humming is being done specifically through the nasal passage, the only thing that the mouth is really doing that's going to interrupt it is the kick. And the snare, which is the click in that instance, is done like separate from all that and just can keep going. Capri Sun says, layering or layering? The first kind of layer. Adding things on top of each other to create concurrent sounds. Layering and beatboxing is one of the more challenging but more impressive things you can do. You can get good at layering sounds together, then it really blows people's minds when they see it for the first time because people think, okay, rhythm comes from here, melody comes from here, other sounds come from here, and when you do them all at the same time, people are like, how do you do that? And I'm not saying for the sake of showing off. When it comes to being able to showcase what beatboxing is capable of, yeah, you could do like a really crazy, complex beat with technicality, but if someone's not a beatboxer, it's not going to be as impressive versus if you're doing something like a song that combines all those things into one. We've talked a bit about layering in the past here on the jam streams. I can always talk about it more in the future if you want. I'm not the best at it, but I'm actively practicing getting better at it. Okay, good side topic though. So let's explain BGM Rush. This is not like any groundbreaking concept or anything like that. Basically, the idea is instead of going slowly and carefully constructing things and talking about it on the fly like we normally do here, especially now that I could talk about it. We're going for like a speed run strat here with the BGM. So I'm going to take an idea, and I could take suggestions from the chat too if people have like a genre or like a style they want me to try and do, especially while I'm working on one for the next one, to be able to put suggestions in we can pick up and run with. But the idea is we try and go rapid fire. All right, we're going to put together the song ideas, put stuff together, compose everything, get it looping, get it clean, and get it to a pretty much finished state, and then move on to the next one. I'm going to try and shotgun through as many as possible and see, and then after that we'll stop, go back through the recordings and see what we came up with. So it's basically like a quick fire exercise, thinking really quickly, putting stuff together, not spending a lot of time tinkering around. We try and go through as much as possible, and that's the challenge. It doesn't always result in the most complex or sophisticated songs, but the point is to do them fast and see what we get. Last time I think we did 5. We did 5 in like half an hour or something like that. So now that I can talk about it, we can... Well, I need to be careful not to distract myself too much when we're talking, but that'll add a slightly different dynamic. Whoops, sorry. Pre-sunset, hang on, be right back. Gotta do something before I forget. No problem, we'll be here. Hey, Lava King's here. What's up, Lava King? Welcome to the Jam stream. We are getting ready to start off BGM Rush. Speed running, putting together beatbox. Well, not beatbox, but loop sounds using the synth and the loop station. So I'm not going to set a time limit for this. Let's just kick things off and we'll see where it goes. I'm just now realizing my model's going to wig out because I'm going to be looking back and forth between the synth over here, the camera over here, and chat over here. So I'm probably going to be all over the place. Lava King says, I'm just icing my foot from when it got shot. Your foot got shot. You got shot in the foot. What? Like from a firearm? What? Lava King says, I shot my... With what? Are you talking like metaphorically? or literally? That's... Okay, literally. All right. With what? A firearm? Because that sounds serious. Or are we talking like with a bow and arrow? You do archery? I don't know if I've ever talked to Lava King about archery, or if we have, I've forgotten. But I think clarification is in order, unless it's not that serious. But that sounds serious to me. Sheesh. Hope you're all right. Seems like you show up with a new injury every other stream. Lava King says, I was aiming my foot because I wondered how much it would hurt if I shot myself with a paintball gun, point blank. And did you get an answer? Do you now know how much it hurts to get shot point blank with a paintball? Well, good. Probably don't want to do that again. Lava King says, and I do not get injured every time. I didn't say every time, but it seems like every so often you show up here with either a new injury or you fell down the stairs or you're in the hospital. I'm like, geez, man. Take care of yourself. Be safe out there. Capri-Sun says he chose the thing you walk with. Yeah, I'm kind of on board in the same thing. If you want to know how much it would hurt to get shot with a paintball, like, why not shoot like have someone shoot you in the quad or something with some meat to it? Foot sounds like it would hurt. Well, no, Lava King. Don't shoot yourself in the head. I was gonna say, like, yeah, have someone shoot you in like the leg or the butt, something that's got some cushioning, so you'll be able to gauge the pain, but not the foot. Like you could blow a vein or like an artery in your foot if you're not careful, especially if you shoot the top. I got shot in the throat once by a paintball. It was not fun. The one part that was unguarded, I got shot right in the throat. It sucked. All right, let me check sound levels here. Wonder why I'm getting sound channels here. Should be balanced. Okay, hopefully this isn't too loud. I've been having to record stuff even on stream here at pretty high volume so that when I record them onto my computer, there's less feedback. So it should be audible but not deafening. Okay. So we're going to start off the BGM Rush, and I'm going to go kind of rapid fire. So unless there's something really critical you want me to stop and talk about, we might have to wait till we finish and then kind of take a pause, because the point is to try and do these as quick as possible and see how many we can do that are decent. So feel free to drop suggestions for things you might want me to add or like genres for the future ones, but we're going to go. And I'm going to talk about them, so you'll still be able to hear me. Love King says, the moment someone touches my paintball gun I only got from my dad as a way to cheer me up from almost drowning in the Atlantic City beach, which caused a huge commotion. Be over my dead body. If anyone's going to shoot me, I'm going to do it like a sane, rational person. I guess that's fair. Just, just be careful. Just be careful. That's all I can say. I'm not your parent, but be careful. All right. To kick us off, let's do something electronic. I know it's kind of my default now, but let's see if we can do something maybe electronic and moody to start, as opposed to like electronic and high energy, and let's just see where it goes. So we're gonna start. Maybe if I move my camera or my mic a little, I don't want it to be. Can't be in front of my camera. My model will wig out. Let's start the electronic kit and see what we can get. Phil Collins time. Oh no, it's ow. Oh. Let's turn that down. Okay, I got it now. Okay. In the Air Tonight. I missed. I'm gonna get copyright claim now. All right. Lava King says, also, Hirako, I've had way worse injuries from escalators or moving vehicles. I believe it. On the sheer amount of times you've mentioned injuries just in the time I've known you, Lava King, I believe it. You might want to invest in some protective armor or padding or something. Okay, so let's see. Electronic, moody. We're kicking off the BGM Rush now, so let's see what we can do. Let me redo that. Sounds like there's a bit of a thump on one of the snares. Let's add some hats. I can probably layer another snare on top to give it a little bit more punch, make it sharper. Yeah, a little bit sharper snare. Let me know if I need to change the playback on the actual loops if you folks can't hear it over me talking. Lava King says, is there a filter that makes the music sound bitty like Sega Genesis? Yes. We can work that in here for this one. It's one synth that's one of my favorites. It's 329. Because we need to set up a bass line. We use guitar to bass, but the actual synth itself sounds like this. But on its own, this is what it sounds like. If we take guitar to bass to boost the low end and give it more of an actual bass line, we get pretty video gamey. I do like the way it sounds. I've used this a couple times. So let's see. Ooh, that sounds a little bit villainy. Let me go. There we go. All right, let's see how this turns out. I think I missed. Yeah, I missed slightly at the end. Okay. Wrong layer. Let's add something else on top. Let me see. Same note progression, but different instrument to kind of boost the level of the bass line a bit. I like the way that sounds. Let's drop it down so it's not quite as overpowering. Okay, let's layer this in. Wrong note. I'm doing this in my left hand. It's a little bit less accurate. All right, let's try it again. There we go. Okay, now we need to come up with some high synth line. Could slice up the beat a little bit. Let's see. Let's try and make it rapid and see what it sounds like with the cut on the slicer. Let's go 16ths. Maybe add some delay. Yeah, it's not bad. Ooh, we go higher up in the octave, same progression. See, that sounds like same progression, but higher up. There we go. I memorized my own notes. And I get recorded. All right, let's see if we can pair with this to kind of build the sound out a little bit. Maybe chords? I'm really bad at chord like harmonization, so I usually just noodle around till I come up with something that I think sounds better. Let's see what other synths we got. Ooh, that has potential. Could try and filter this one. Oh, not that filter. Keep forgetting that one's preset. Ooh, not bad. Kind of a complementary chord progression. Drop this one down in the mix so it's not quite as overpowering. What else we got? This is kind of a brassy sound. I don't know if this really fits. This might not be bad as an alt melody, but I think it has to be. I think it has to be in place of the two high synths because it clashes a little bit. Let me try and record it a little bit better though. Not bad. What do we think about how we'd break up the song? Think about how we'd bring in the other parts. Could also think about a drop too. Maybe not there. I think that's pretty functional. One thing I didn't do last time was spend a lot of time messing around with the order of which these things would be performed. I could kind of do that after the fact later. But I think this one's pretty functional. It does sound video gamey to me. I don't know if it's Sega Genesis video gaming, but that kind of filtered effect on the synth, it does give me some kind of vibes of some of the old school kind of video gamey type soundtracks. All right, let's save this. One down. Next. New file. Starting over with the rhythm. Let me clear this one off here. I'm going to go for something a little more chill. Kind of alternate the energy levels a bit to give some variety. Let's do something a little more chill. Let's see what we come up with. Thinking starting with the jazz kit. There's the hats I was talking about earlier. I really want to try and do like an electro swing song. I'm kind of working up to being able to replicate that genre, but I don't think I've quite figured it out yet using the tools I've got. But I would love to do electro swing stuff. It's one of my favorite electronic genres. It's so much fun. We could try it. You folks feel adventurous? I'm going to try not to just rip off a Has-Been Hotel song. Let's try it. Let's just see what happens. That's what the BGM Rush is for. Maybe turn that down a little bit. A little offbeat. Man, that's kind of a tough rhythm for me to record. I'm not too used to the offbeats. Let's use this one. Now, what kind of snare should we use? That's a little bit too dull. Claps sound too extra. Let's try one of the other ones. Maybe drop the volume on this one a little bit. Let's just try it. Okay. Interesting semi-swing adjacent type of beat. But I think we can kind of capitalize on that a bit with the bass line. Now, what to use for the bass line? This is synth bass. That might work a little bit better. Okay, let's add guitar to bass and mess around with this upwards progression. Almost feel like it's a little bit too slow for like a true like electro swing beat, so we're gonna try and get close and see what happens. I don't know if I like the strings there. Maybe I can leave the bass line. If I want to layer something onto that later, I'll do that. Oh, I know we need some brass. Let's see. That's not bad. Go off beats here. I feel like there's a slight gap at the end of that I don't like. Oh, because it's offbeat, that's why. Yeah, that's why. Octave that up a little bit. Try and harmonize it. I don't know if I like the way that sounds. Kind of funky, a little jazzy, not really electro swing, but kind of funky and jazzy, which I don't do a lot in that style, so we can keep kind of messing with this and see where it goes. I'm gonna lower the playback a little bit so I'm not getting drowned out by the loop. It's a little loud. Let's add a higher synth line to kind of compete with the sort of jazzy, brassy stuff that's in there now. That's not bad. I like a reverse arpeggio almost. That's how it works. Maybe octave that one. No, not bad, but we drop down the volume a little bit so that it's not overpowering the lower part. Oh, I think we can just get some horns in here, like some brass horns to go with the saxophone. I wonder why that sounds so muted for the mute trumpet sound. I think I like the regular one. harmonize it a little bit. I wonder if that would make sense to switch off with the other synths. I think I like that better. That way it's not competing with the other one. So we have like an A and B synth melody. So this one's kind of interesting. I don't think I've ever recorded a song with this particular type of style. It's a little bit weird, but kind of interesting. It's funky. I don't really do funky a lot. Maybe I should do it more. I'm thinking we lead with the bass line on this one when we're starting the song. Maybe bring in the saxes. Bring in the beat. Bring in the first synth. Let me filter it. And we switch out the sound for the other synth. P-Sun says, that made my brain do the dopamine. Nice. Yeah, I'm thinking about changing from a bass pass, I don't know what the B stands for, but to a low pass filter. It changes how it's filtering. Kind of makes it sound a little more murky. So if we do this. Yeah, underwater, exactly. Maybe drop the bass in and out. This one is probably going to be enhanced by swapping in different parts out relatively quickly, which is going to be tough to record, but I can definitely do it. Yeah, that's kind of funny. I don't think the slicer adds much. I just wanted to see what it sounded like. Okay, can't vibe too much. We got to keep moving. That was interesting. I don't think I've ever again done a song with that particular type of style. Capri Sun says, my cat is now staring at your VTuber model. Hope it's not too distracting. All right. Oops. Just resave this. Let's move on. Maybe now we do something more chill. That one ended up being a bit more kind of a funky vibe, not necessarily like a cool out chill song. Let's see. These two on the analog kit. This is the exact combo, just trivia purposes. This is the exact combo I used for Mortal Coils off the Halloween album. I really liked that particular one. That one was fun. It does a lot of interesting things with the synths and kind of conveying movement, but we don't want to just replicate that. Let's pick it up a little bit. I don't know if this is going to be chill, but this will be something. It's not really a kick. This is more like just a bass tone combined with it, but we'll make this the rhythm and kind of build it out from here. I'm just listening for a second to see if that hat's a little too loud. I'm gonna redo it. That's a little bit more muted. All right, let's think about a bass line to pair with this one. Now if we want piano, let's see. I need to make sure I'm not kind of in the same key as each one of the previous ones. So that's why I'm kind of messing around on the low end here. Okay, that sounds like another one I've done. I do like harpsichord, but I don't think it needs to be used for a bass line. Ooh, that's not bad. Maybe drop it down and up the volume a little bit. I like that better. There we go. Now maybe he's dropped lower. There we go. Now we take that same progression, we add something a little more low and bassy to it. Ooh, marimba, that's kind of interesting. Ooh, it's a lower end register, same progression. Not bad. I don't think I've ever used a marimba in any of the stuff I've tried so far. Bells, I think bells are a little bit clashing in style. I don't even know what a carillon is. Ooh, that's not bad. This is a type of organ. Ooh, I don't know if I like the sustained note. I think I like it cutting off and giving the rhythm a little bit of a gap. All right, now we need to figure out something else for the synth, main synth. Reed organ. I don't know what that is. That sounds self-explanatory, I suppose. Oh, that's why. It's like a tango instrument. Hey, ukulele. Sounds kind of chimey for ukulele. Steel guitar. That's actually not bad. Kind of missed the last note though. Let's try that again. That seems like it should be a harpsichord run. This is a mandolin. Not bad. We need to kind of fill out something that's going to be a bit more background melodies. Not bad. This is a distorted electric guitar with filter. Preson asks, do they have a dulcimer? I believe it's a stringed instrument created in my state. They do have a dulcimer. I just passed by it earlier. Let me see if I can jump back through the synth sets and find it. There we go. Gotta turn the filter off. Sounds like this. There's a couple different dulcimer presets. This is the first one. What's the second one sound like? Oh, the second one's a bit more metallic and stringy in sound. That's not bad. That's kind of an interesting combination. I was listening to see if it clashed directly with the other string line, but it doesn't really. I think the rhythm is off though. Yeah, let me fix that. Better. Yeah, I think we need something to fill it out a little bit more so it doesn't sound quite so empty. Maybe we put strings or choir in the back. Let's go look at the string preset and see what they got. Not bad. I'm trying to see if it harmonizes with the progression going on. You could drop it down a little bit in the mix. I think it's dissonant. Let's see. That's a little better. This one's kind of weird, but I do think it works. It's just a little bit more of an unusual combination of themes. Thinking about just some combinations of how I want the synths to come in and play when the song's actually being performed. Ooh, what is that on the bass line? Oh, weird. That kind of thump at the end. I wonder what caused that. Nope, it's not that. Weird. I don't know if I might have to redo that. Actually, it kind of blends in with the rhythm when those two are playing at the same time. It sounds like a slightly additional kick in between. Okay, let's save our progress here. This one's kind of a weird and interesting experiment. But it's functional and it's pretty cohesive. It might need some tweaks, but I think it's cohesive. So let's move on to the next one. Capri-san says something to definitely come back to. Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to use that for something. It's so unusual that I think it would fit. Maybe it would fit in a Halloween project. I don't know. But in the interest of keeping the BGM Rush going, let's try another one. Okay. Got a clear file. Let's see. What style or genre should we jump to now? So it's something kind of like electronic. Then we did something jazzy, funky a little bit. Then something that was a bit more weird and ambient. Maybe we go for like a... I'm on the electric drum kit here. Capri Sun says, I'm liking BGM Rush. Yeah, it's a bit more, like I said, rapid fire and quick, but it allows us to kind of throw a bunch of ideas at the wall and see what sticks and kind of move quickly. Capri Sun says, polka. I kid. Yeah, I wish. I'm not really a big fan of polka unless Weird Al's doing it. This is like polka tempo / fast march, so you could use it for either. There is an accordion on here. I don't really want to record a BGM track that's polka. It would probably be like a fast, alternating like 2-step bass line and then like riffs with the accordion. I know all the stuff on here that could do it. It's just not really something I think I could do justice in honor of the legend Weird Al. I know we haven't really done much hip hop adjacent stuff. Let's see if we can do some hip hop ish. I don't think this is the kit I want though. No, that's not the snare I want. Oh, we can do claps. The crunk era 2000s. I was thinking I really would like to get more experience trying to create the more like 90s era boom bap type East Coast hip hop beats. Those are some of my favorites. Like DJ Premier, one of the greatest DJs and beat producers in the entirety of hip hop. We might be able to do something with this. Let's give it a try. Rather, face the mic. Let's give this a try and see what we come up with. Whoops. There we go. Pre-Sun says, what about a beat inspired by Has-Been? Like a specific character or something? I've been meaning to talk to you about what music vibes each character gives off to you that I haven't had their sound already identified. Like steel guitar for Carmine. I think it's the type of guitar they use for her. For Carmilla, it's Spanish guitar. Very like Latin pop, Latin jazz. Steel guitar is a bit more bluesy, but like that actual kind of like flamenco Spanish guitar. Yeah, very, very like thematically on point for her. Haven't really given much thought. I think Charlie's musical genre would probably be like a show tunes, poppy styles, the main character. Vaggy's tough. I'd have to think a little bit about her. She is Hispanic, so you could kind of do like a Latin type of vibe for her. I mean, like a Latin blues or pop. Capri Sun says Vaggy's rock or metal. I don't know. I feel like that's a bit too hard for her, especially as a former Angel. Probably be something in the middle. Maybe more like, I don't know. Again, I kind of gravitated more towards like Latin inspired elements because she's supposed to be Salvadoran. I read that in the wiki. Husk would be probably blues. Something that you can kind of play around with in like a bar setting, like having drinks at the bar since he's the bartender. Angel, given like Poison specifically, I think synth pop and like kind of synth wave stuff fits pretty good for him. Even though he's technically from an older time, like his kind of vibe is very like high energy, like synth wave. I think would be good for Angel. Let's see. You know who is kind of an interesting one that I didn't think about that I tried and nailed down a sound for is Nifty. I have no idea what she would be. She'd probably be like ska, something really kind of high energy and chaotic. For the hyperactive psycho little gremlin that we all love. Something with a lot of like high energy, but a lot of movement and random stuff. Like Nifty would be tough to convey in music. Yeah, like you said, Alistair would be jazz. Who are we missing of the core cast? Penchus would be tough. Penchus, probably something chiptune-ish or like really like synth based. He's kind of a nerd and he's an inventor. So maybe like a chiptune electronic type thing, or maybe trip hop. Trip hop wouldn't be bad for Penchus too. For Cherry would be punk. Definitely punk for Cherry. Let's see. I'm just thinking of a lot of the extended cast too. Vox would probably be something very electronic, like maybe Glitch, or maybe something kind of in that vibe. Something you hear, techno, very techno. I get that kind of vibe from Vox. Velvet would probably be like dance hall, maybe dance hall or house, maybe. For Valentino's kind of tough. He has like a Hispanic accent too, so maybe like really like aggressive, like Latin jazz or something. Emily, I like how we're having this discussion. There's just this very simple hip hop beat just going in the background. It's gonna be good on the archives. Emily would probably be similar type of pop, I think, because she's kind of hailed as like an idol for Heaven, the person who's supposed to inspire happiness. So I'm thinking like maybe K-pop or something very pop oriented for Emily. Similar to Charlie. Something that's going to be like high energy, really melodic. Lucifer would probably be like carnival music or electro swing. I think electro swing, since he has Best Dad in Hell with his duet with Alistair, electro swing fits Lucifer really well. My sticky notes falling off. All right. Interesting sidebar. I could talk about like musical interpretations in Has Been and Hell of a Boss too for a long time. But we're slowing down the BGM Rush. Let's come up with a bass line for this thing. I'm thinking like heavy sustained notes in the bass line. Something that'll really rattle the subwoofers in your tricked out lowered car. Maybe I want dance bass. That's what I was thinking of. Nope. There's a bass tone I'm specifically going for here, like a 90s era really low kind of warbling bass, but it's not. I think it might be flute that I can do with that. Yeah, that's a little bit closer, but if we crank up the guitar to bass. There we go. Of course, we need to do it on beat. You remember the notes I'm using here? Preson says, oh, like a laser sound that sounds like a depth charge going off in the vacuum of sound, which makes literally no sense. It sounds like you're talking about a muted snare. Something that sounds kind of like an explosion, but muffled. Which would have made sense as part of the rhythm. Like, I think I could replicate that using a regular snare. And filter. Might be a specific one though, maybe low pass. No, that is low pass. Yeah, I think it's low. In fact, if I boost the sound up, we can probably layer this in with the rhythm on the snare. That might be a little too loud. There we go. It sounds like a bit more of a kind of muted thud on the snare. That's interesting. Okay, now we need to think of something in the middle to add. Probably we're gonna need to go for some of the synths. What if we did square lead? Preson says it's like you plucked the sound straight from my thoughts. I could kind of tell what you were saying. I just had to think about how I would replicate it using the tools I've got here. Let's see if we can slice up like a high complementary synth here. In triplets. I think I have to go 16s. We can play around with the sound channel panning by using panning delay. It'll sound like the synth is moving around in the sound channels of your headphones, which you may or not be able to hear, Capri Sun. That's better. Oh, mono? Okay, I gotcha. In the final track, you be able to hear it when you listen to it, like with a stereo device. We did something like... Oh, the headphones they're not mono sound. I think OBS might be outputting the sound for the stream in mono. I have to go look, but either way, like you might not be able to hear the stereo channels moving around, but you'd be able to hear it in whatever I record when it's finally released. That's not bad. What else we got? Oh, we could add some more kind of synthy video gamey type stuff using a different preset. Octavit. I'm gonna drop the volume down so it's a bit more complimentary. Yeah, that's pretty functional so far. It's just 3 components of the beat. But you could definitely do something hip-hop with this. Let's see, what else can we add to this thing? That's not bad. Really simple chord, 1-note chord with 2-note progression. Maybe drop it in the mix so it's not quite so loud. I need to practice some more with doing hip-hop type beats because I would like to use them for future projects. Considering how much I like that genre, you'd think I would be better at making beats, but I tend to gravitate towards the more electronic or chill stuff. Although Animus Carrion is probably the closest to like a legit hip-hop beat that I've done from the Halloween project. That one was probably my favorite from the whole thing. Okay, let's save this one. There's still one empty loop track left, so we could add something else to this one, but I kind of like the core concept for this one. Thinking about how this one will be structured, we have the beat, bring in the bass. Bring in the first synth. Now you bring in the chord. Thinking about how this would be structured, like let's say this was being used for like a rap song. I think the dominant high synth would be used as part of the intro, but for the verses, it would probably come out and we're just left with everything like this with the bass line plus the chord. And so you'd be doing like the bars over this for however many sections. And then when we get to like the chorus, the hook, we would bring back the high synth. And we probably do something like you hear in a lot of beats throughout, maybe like the verse structure where the bass drops out. And it comes back in. I think if we were doing verses, probably something like this. Oh. So during actual verses, you hear these 3 loops going, and then throughout, just to add emphasis, you'd have the bass dropping in mid bar. Do something like, to add emphasis to the vocals, and then it comes back in. I almost wonder if it'd make more sense. I have to think about this in post. I wonder if it makes more sense to have the bass follow similar progression to the chord. I'll have to think about that. Because if we did that, where are we up here? So we could do something like have that be in the bass line, so it's not just one note that's playing, just one static note. I'll have to think about that. I did see we got a hydrate, stretch, and a save reminder from Capri Sun. Alright. Let's take advantage of the save reminder, and we'll save this one. Usually what I'll do, I don't do this on stream per se, but when I'm trying to structure a beat like this that I'm going to use for like a hip-hop rap type project, as I'm composing it, I'll just start using some of the stuff that I've written to test out like the flow and how it sounds and how the whole thing will progress, to see how it matches up if I was going to use it. That's what I ended up doing for the Poison type song that I did. I didn't really need to get one of my projects. It's been on the shelf for a bit, done and out, so you folks can listen to it. Juggling a lot of priorities. But yeah, I think this one is pretty functional. Might need a little bit more tweaking and something added with it. But I am decently pleased with the core structure of it. So that's good. So I think what we'll do, since it's getting a little bit late and I got to go take care of some stuff, let's jump back through what we've done on the jam stream for the BGM Rush. I think we did this a little bit slower than last time, but it's because I've been talking, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like we're trying to hit a certain quota. But let's go back. And I think this is 4, right? Okay, that was one of them. That was not one of them. So 1, 2, 3, I think, yeah, 4. This is the first one. As far as names go, normally we talk about suggestions and whatnot. I'm gonna probably have to tweak these a little bit more, and this might change the sound. So like last time, we didn't really worry too much about naming these. They'll go into the bank and be refined a little bit more before I worry about the titles. So this first one we had kind of a mid-tempo electronic. It sounds kind of like a villain theme to me a little bit. Probably the most straightforward of all the ones we did so far. The next up we had, is this the jazz one? Yep. This one's kind of like a funky, jazzy type song. This is the most unique one of the entire set, I think. This one was fun, and I don't think I really want to change much about it. I probably have to structure how I'd want it to be performed, but this might be my favorite just because it's the most unique. Next up, third track. Right, the weird one. Sounds like a good ambient theme. It sounds like the level theme you'd hear in a temple, or like an abandoned castle or something. Bit spooky, probably more of the spooky side compared to the other ones we did so far. So this one might be a good entry for a potential Halloween project. In fact, it is pretty similar to one I previewed for you folks last time. I don't know if you remember. But yeah, that one also, I don't think I'd tweak much with that one. Maybe just structure how it's going to be performed in a certain way. And then the last one is the hip-hop one. So that gives us four tracks in the BGM Rush, which I think is pretty good. I think if we were doing this at the normal pace, we probably would have gotten through one or two in the same amount of time. And I think as we do this as an exercise and challenge here on stream, I'll probably get better at it and get better at kind of rapidly adapting things on the fly. So we'll see how the progression goes, but it is fun to kind of just, again, rapid fire ideas, shotgun stuff at the wall and see what comes together, and then move on to the next and move on to the next. So next time we'll see if we can beat 4. Because, again, last time I did it, I didn't have the setup where I could talk. So I just go, boom, boom, boom. I did them a lot faster. But we also did these with a bit more complexity to them than the last time, which is good. So if this was interesting, then we'll definitely bring back BGM Rush in the near future. Probably next time we do a jam stream, it'll just be like a regular session of us talking through some ideas and formulating things a bit slower. But I'd be down for maybe alternating every other or every couple jam streams. We bring this concept back and just try and push through more of them. So to that end, I think we will start to wrap up here. This is a little bit longer jam stream than normal, which is good. We talked about a lot of stuff. We messed around with some interesting ideas. So let me go pull up the homie list and see who is online that we can raid. Oh, Wazzy's streaming on a Saturday? Huh. I did not know she was streaming today. Let's go raid Wazzy. It's been a bit. She's playing Minecraft. Oh boy. I'm sure there's no shenanigans there. Let me get everything queued up and we'll go see what the Lord of Toxicure is doing. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll pause that. Mute this. Stream anniversary, huh? Yeah, I don't really memorize her schedules. I'm just kind of surprised to see her live on a Saturday. But that's cool. Let's go see how the Minecraft is going. Spread the good vibes elsewhere. 4 years. Oh, I gotcha. Thanks for specifying, Capri Sun. Let's go ahead and go to, let's see, we'll mute the desktop audio and go to outro. And we will queue up the raid. So we will be back. This is the weekend stream. We'll be back next week. Maybe Monday, or we might be going Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday again. I don't know quite yet. Got to figure out my schedule. But either way, thanks for coming and hanging out while we did some beatboxing and BGM brainstorming. I will catch you folks in the next one. Now let us go see how Minecraft is going.